Hey everyone, what's going on? If you're new to the channel, I'm not going to go on my usual spiel about what this channel is about, so just check some links out in the description. I have numerous videos, and if you don't follow them videos, you're not going to be able to follow this video. But in the past year, or even more than that, we've been talking a lot about the significance of the dates of August 10th and August 11th of 2019 because the Jewish Remembrance Day of the destruction of the two temples, called Tisha B'Av, falls on August 10th and August 11th this year. And we thought possibly there might be an event with the Golden Gate Bridge or maybe the Western Wall or the Temple Mount in Israel. There's lots of symbolism that has been going on. And in the mix of all that, I mentioned how there seems to be this connection to what we've been following or what was going on in the year 2016. And gematria knowledge was really getting very big at this time. And at the time, we were still only using two ciphers, the reduction method and also the alphabetic order. And I mentioned how I was getting trolled like crazy because of my Jeopardy videos, and a bunch of other things happened. This guy named James Jumper kept trolling me, and he referred to me as Nad. He started this blog, and he referred to my name in reverse on his blog. And later on, after a bunch of events happened, which I'm not going to re-explain, we discovered these other ciphers that are important in gematria. We discovered the reverse and the reverse reduced and so on. And that guy's name was James Jumper, that equaled 166 in reverse. And if you read out reverse gematria in the frontwards way, it equaled 166. And there was numerous other things with this number. My uncle Barney had died. It was all connected to the number 166 and so on. And I mentioned how this year August 10th might be important due to the pig year. And in 2016, a big deal was that this guy on YouTube named Monograph had told Zachary K. Hubbard to watch out for Christmas Eve, and then a car crashed into his house on Christmas Eve. And that guy was the Umbrella Man. Earlier back in March, I talked about how I had the synchronicity with Mary Poppins, and then a few days later in the mainstream media, there was a story about a guy who got blown away on an umbrella like Mary Poppins, and it reminded me back of the Umbrella Man. And back in that time, I was listening to the Gematria Effect, and this lady had called in talking about Montagraph, and then she mentioned how he was trying to kill her pet pigs and whatnot. And in Jewish Gematria, the word pigs equaled 166. And this was just after Monograph had made a new video, and he did it 166 days after my birthday, and it was right after I had talked all about the number 166 and the importance of it and whatnot. And I'm listening to the Gematria Effect, and this lady calls in about her pet pigs, and my daughter had just went to bed, and she told me to watch her stuffed animals, and she called them her pet pigs because they were two stuffed animal pet pigs that I was sitting by while listening to the Gematria Effect. And I just thought there was something important to that. This year is a Chinese pig year, and so on. So I was following this big narrative, and I mentioned how I think that maybe nothing will happen on these dates. There's just something, maybe nothing catastrophic will happen, but it's something that is going to be symbolic, and we're going to learn this bigger piece to this knowledge around this time or sometime after these dates. And I was just saying that because of all that stuff that happened in 2016. So, we didn't get any like major catastrophic events on August 10th or August 11th, but we did get some very interesting things. So, in 2016, a major thing I was talking about was how I was getting just major trolled on all these videos, and then, it was pointing me to some things, right? And that was right around the same time the Trolls movie came out, the one with Justin Timberlake, and South Park was doing a whole season about the troll trace that where the dad was the troll skink hunt 42 skink hunt can't even say it skink hunt 42, and I think it was Denmark had created this troll trace thing, and they captured all these trolls and whatnot. South Park is my favorite cartoon. They were running this big troll theme. There was I can't remember. There was one other troll thing that was going on around that same time. A bunch of troll stuff. And if you've been following me this year, I talked a lot about Buffy the Vampire Slayer and how it was synced up to the death of Luke Perry. And also we got the death of, I can't pronounce his name. What's his name? Rutger Hauer, the guy that's in the movie Blade Runner. But he was also Lothos in the film Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And what I talked about back then was how I made this random post because there was a story about Buffy the Vampire Slayer in the mainstream media wearing lingerie on Thanksgiving. And there was also a story about David Arquette in the mainstream media right around that same time, and I knew he was in the film Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I just wondered if there was some connection to it. And I talked about how Buffy the Vampire Slayer in Gematria equals 310, and the TV show, it first aired on 310, and even Buffy Summers, I later discovered, equals 310, and these Francis Bacon ciphers that are important to the pig year, the Chinese pig year. And 3 months and 10 days after I made that blog post, Luke Perry died. Luke Perry, also in the film Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And on that same day, we got a story about Corey Feldman defending Michael Jackson about the film called Leaving Neverland. And I started thinking about vampires, and I was like, Leaving Neverland, Corey Feldman's in the famous movie The Lost Boys. It's about vampires. And he's known for the other Corey, who just so happened to die on the date of 310. And I went back and I watched this. I don't know what happened there, but I went back and I watched The Lost Boys 2. Think about The Lost Boys, Neverland, so on. And I noticed they do this distinct whistle after they kill somebody in that movie. And it's the same whistle that is on this TV show that my daughter watches all the time called Troll Hunters. And I looked up the song and I found out that it actually came from this play here called Peer Gynt. And it came out on the day leaving 310 days in the year. And the guy who wrote the song was, his name equaled 310 in Gematria. I think he died 3 months and 10 days before his birthday. It was all about 310. And I knew Buffy was important to some troll theme. And trolls reminded me of Scandinavia, right? Denmark, Norway, Sweden, so on, right? And you can even put in like Finland, just that general area, trolls. And I talked a lot about this bridge theme. Think about trolls underneath the bridge. And then we got a story about Buffy the Vampire Slayer getting trolled with Dean Cain, who plays Superman, and a bunch of other things. But I'm just bringing all this back up because one of the major things that happened on August 10th was we got an Oslo mosque shooting. So a mosque shooting that was in Oslo, Norway, which just so happens to be where this play that I was talking about with the troll theme was actually premiered. It actually premiered in Oslo, right? And this play came out 143 years ago, and August 10th, the day of the shooting in Oslo, is the day that leaves 143 days in the year. And even more so, I know it's connected. The town that this actually happened in, it was like a suburb of Oslo, and it was called Bærum, Norway. And I mean, look when you type it out, Bærum, from Norway. It just so happens to equal 310. And the name of the mosque, Al Noor Islamic Center, that also equals 310 in Gematria. So it's absolutely synced up. It's synced up to what I was talking about. Nothing super big happened. It was just this mosque shooting, but it's absolutely important to what this narrative that I've been following. And the guy's name, the guy even looks like a girl, and his name's supposedly Philip Manshaus. Oh, the odds, like Chelsea Manning, Philip Manshaus, and then he even looks like a girl. I really could care less if it is a girl or a guy or whatever else. I'm not following the whole everyone's a tranny narrative. I mean, it's interesting, but it's not something that I waste my time with. But anyway, what else was interesting is, this shooting was in connection to the Christchurch mosque shooting that we had on the Ides of March, that in 2018 I talked about this narrative with the Austin bomber and his pink gloves, and his name was Mark Anthony Condit, and then we got the Caesar Sayok story. It was Mark Antony and Caesar, right? And, think about it. The Ides of March. Then on the Ides of March, we get a mosque shooting in Christ Church, Julius Caesar, JC, Jesus Christ, JC. You know, think about it. Islam, Christ Church. It's all just this big joke. But the reason it's so significant is the shooter at the Christ Church mosque shooting, one of his inspirations was just so happened to be this guy named Anders Breivik, or however you pronounce his name. And he just so happened to be the shooter in, there was a 2011 Norway attack. It was actually not a shooting, but car bomb and whatnot. So the guy in the Christ Church mosque attack this year that was important to the dates of August 10th and August 11th, one of his, one of his influences was this guy who did the Norway attacks in 2011. And then on August 10th, we get none other than a Norway mosque shooting. It's also interesting that this shooting was in 2011. And what I've recently talked about is how 2011 is so important. 2011, because August 10th was World Lion Day, that was important to the Ethiopian airline crash that happened on the date of 310, which I talked about how 310, there was something very significant about that day with all the Buffy stuff. Then we got the Ethiopian airline crash that was going to Kenya, and Kenya is where the Lion King is, the setting is based off of. And in 2011, Obama joked that he was the Lion King at the White House Correspondents' Dinner just before, and he also made jokes about Donald Trump being the president and whatnot. And that was just days before Osama bin Laden was supposedly killed. And Osama bin Laden's birthday was the date of 310. And he even died 3 months and 10 days before Al Qaeda was founded, the anniversary of Al Qaeda being founded on August 11th. And it was all about this number 310. But that was in 2011. This Norway attack was in 2011. The Ethiopian calendar, currently until the date of September 12th this year, it is in the year 2011. Also, this date, the shooting happened on 22/7, which we've talked about is a number that is important to France, but also a number important to pi. And pi in gematria equals 11. And when I was writing up this blog post, I had all kinds of stuff, all kinds of 11 symbolism. And last November, it actually started on Halloween, I was pointing out all of this stuff that was connected to the number 11. I just kept seeing all this stuff with the number 11, and all of these weird things were going on with the number 11. And I had all this synchronicity, this 2011 I'm looking up Jeffrey Epstein, or Stein, however you say it, and I thought in my video, my last video, I had talked about how, Hillary Clinton supposedly kills all the, killed all these people, and she's the elite, and, the elite were who killed Julius Caesar and whatnot. I didn't actually mention that, but I know it was on my brain, and I feel like I wrote it down somewhere, but I can't find it. But I went back and was just listening to my video, trying to find that part, and my internet disconnected, and I looked down and it was exactly 11 a.m. in the morning, and I thought, huh, that's kind of weird, and I had typed in 2011. It was the part where I had 2011 here. And then at 11 a.m. exactly, my internet disconnects for no reason. And it reconnected right after that, and I kept watching the video. And then at 11:11, it disconnected again. And I didn't get the screenshot in time, but it was 11:11 when I looked down at it, and the internet had disconnected again. So I was like, huh, something to do with 11. I got 2011 here. Then I'm talking about the Norway attacks from 2011, Ethiopian calendar 2011, Obama joking about the Lion King 2011, August 10th, World Lion Day, during the time of Leo, and so on. And there's also a story in the media here about the gymnast Simone Biles. And I remember there was this gymnast from Iowa that I've been talking a whole lot about, just Iowa in general, Des Moines being really important to the wall symbolism and Slipknot and a bunch of stuff. So I looked up this girl. It just so happens to say that her music was called August Rush, or it's called August Rhapsody from the movie August Rush. And just thinking about August being important, and I looked that movie up, and it's about this 11-year-old prodigy in music and whatnot. And the whole post I was talking about the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, supposedly committing suicide on August 10th, and it was exactly 11 weeks before Hillary Clinton's birthday, which is October 26th, which is this big important day that I've been following as well. I've been talking a lot about Halloween being important because Halloween was when my laptop crashed when I was writing about pi and the number 11, and I lost everything, and so on. And that's really when the 11 symbolism began. I have a whole video on it. I'll leave in the description. But Hillary Clinton's birthday this year is also, we got a mainstream media story about how they want to move Halloween to the last Saturday of October instead of October 31st. And this year, that would just so happen to be Hillary Clinton's birthday. And in 2017, when I was talking about the Stand By Me symbolism and how it was missing Kiefer Sutherland and Will Wheaton, then we got Will Wheaton on the Big Bang Theory, and then we got the Sutherland Springs church shooting. I mentioned how all of this stuff was important to the JFK files. We had a story about Marilyn Monroe on Hillary Clinton's birthday, and we had Marilyn Manson in the media for breaking his leg in New York City, and everything about him was about 10. He had that song called Say 10, in which he showed the political assassination of Donald Trump. And I was talking about all this 10 days before stuff. And I don't want to re-explain it. I'll leave a link in the description, but the number 144 is important. JFK met the Pope 144 days before he died. When Donald Trump became the president, he met Pope Francis on the 144th day of the year, which was also his 4th month and 4th day of being the president. And if you read out 44, it equals 144. And William Henry Harrison died on 4/4. He was the first president to die in office. And Trump is the 44th person to be the president, but he's the 45th president, and a number of other things. If you write out 10 days before, it equals 144. If you write out 10, it equals 144. And Hillary Clinton's birthday is 10 days before 144 days after Trump's birthday. So 134 days. Make America Great Again equals 134. Tisha B'Av 134. 9th of Av 134, and so on. All these interesting things. And then on her birthday that year, Trump released the JFK files. And we got a story about Marilyn Monroe, and I talked about how Marilyn Manson was important to Charles Manson and Marilyn Monroe, and the kneeling during the national anthem stuff was going on. That was important to Charles Manson because he believed in the helter-skelter theory about the blacks rising up. Think about, black people kneeling during the national anthem. Then Charles Manson died in November that year, just, weeks after I mentioned all this stuff about Charles Manson being important. So, Hillary Clinton's birthday, a date that I'm watching out for this year. Halloween, it just seems like there's something important to it. And what's even more funny is I started thinking about Denmark because I actually know a family that lives in Denmark. My cousin Justin, his family had a foreign exchange student named Asmus from Denmark, and then Asmus's family has been over here and whatever, visited, occasionally they'll come back for a month or so, and so on. So I know this family from Denmark, and Denmark's in Scandinavia, and a whole bunch of interesting stuff. My cousin gave me this shirt that said Christiania on it, which is, if you look up Oslo, Oslo used to actually be called that. Oslo. Just want to point it out really quick. It used to be called this. And when my cousin went to Denmark, he got me this shirt that said this on it. And it's actually like this. I always thought it was just some type of drug town within Copenhagen, but it's actually like an anarchist community that is within Copenhagen, Denmark, So, but I had this shirt, and my cousin's birthday is October 26th. So it just makes me think that there's something significant to that day. And the reason I even brought that up was because I was at work the other day, and it was the last customer I had, and he told me that I look like this guy. Never met this guy in my life. He told me that I look like David Foster Wallace, which I don't think I look like this guy whatsoever. I mean, I sort of get it. Maybe my hair was weird and I have glasses, but it's interesting. This guy died on September 12th, which this year is the New Year's Day of the Ethiopian calendar. And I noticed his last book that he put out, it actually came out in 2011. And the one that he was famous for was called Infinite Jest, which is a play on Hamlet, which Hamlet is about the Denmark king, right? So I was like, interesting, something to do with Denmark. And this guy's name equals 810. And I have this old video from the shooting that happened in Copenhagen from 2015 that really, it was just a bunch of stuff that I thought was connected. Didn't even really talk about numbers in this, but in this thing I talked about the movie Valentine that has David, whatever, that guy's name right there, who's Angel on the TV show Buffy that I talked about, and the other person that stars in the movie is Denise Richards, who is just in the mainstream media for having a large thyroid. And then I also just documented about Miley Cyrus separating from Leon Hemsworth. And in this video from 2015 about Copenhagen, I talked about how, oh, okay, Denise Richards, I talked about her in regards to Charlie Sheen in the film Red Dawn. And Red Dawn just so happened to come out on August 10th. And then I mentioned this guy, who's Miley Cyrus's ex-brother-in-law, and how he was in the newest Red Dawn film. And his birthday just happens to be August 11th. And I'm going, what are the odds of all this, And a big day I was talking about this year is 9/19. And this video is 9 minutes and 19 seconds long even. So, I don't know. I just feel like there's something important to that. Also, Denmark comes from the mark of Dan, right? Danmark. My name's Dan, so I don't know. There's something important to that. But this guy's last work came out in 2011, yet again. The 2011 being important. So I started thinking too, like 2011, what was important in 2011? And one of the things that was important in 2011 was the Fukushima thing, right? The earthquake and then the nuclear stuff with Fukushima. And then lo and behold, we get this story about the nuclear mystery in Russia. And it reminds us of Chernobyl and so on, So just how interesting. 2011. 2011 also was the year of the Occupy Wall Street uh, protest thing that was going on. Occupy Wall Street, that's been really important to Donald Trump, all of this wall symbolism. It was also the year of the Joplin, Missouri tornado, and there was also them tornadoes that we got in Alabama and whatnot in 2011 that I documented about back in March. And in March, we got the deadly tornado in Alabama that they compared it to the 2011 tornadoes and whatnot. And also in the mainstream media, I've been seeing this story a lot too with Bam Margera asking Dr. Phil for help and whatnot. And Ryan Dunn is part of the reason why Bam Margera has got to the point he is, right? And of course, Ryan Dunn died in 2011. So, and Bam, he loves all them bands from the Scandinavian area too, Sweden and so on. So, it's very interesting. And also with Chernobyl, another thing with Chernobyl is that the first place to mention that the radiation from Chernobyl had spread was the country Sweden, and a lot of the radiation that spread, it did go into Norway and Sweden and so on. So there's something important to that area, and it's funny that I would mention it in regards to trolls and whatnot, and following this troll theme with Buffy. Another interesting thing, so another major stuff is going on with China right now, and China just makes so much sense to me. China, think about the Chinese pig year being really important, and that town of Christiania or whatever, however you pronounce it. Just let me type this out really quick. Christiania. It equals 186, and August 10th was on the 186th day of the pig year too. And remember how Oslo was called that? So that's super interesting to me. But China has been really, really important to this big narrative that I followed, right? The pig year is important to China. Also, Iowa. I've been talking a lot about Slipknot and Iowa, the Iowa State Fair being important, and the World's Fair that I have mentioned a bunch with McKinley dying at. The World's Fair this year is currently being held in China. Also, the Iowa governor right now is currently Kim Reynolds, and Kim Reynolds just so happens to became the governor because Terry Branstad, the former governor, resigned to become the ambassador to China. We also got a story earlier this year about farmers being mad at Donald Trump and his trade war with China. Think about farmers in Iowa, so on. Iowa is really important to France, and remember we got the death of the Chinese guy named I.M. Pei who designed however you say it, the Louvre in France. And he died on 5/16, which is the day that Slipknot released their new single from their newest album, right? And that was the day that Buffy the Vampire Slayer was on the Big Bang Theory, and so on. That's the day that Angel, the David guy, is born. So, very interesting there. Trying to figure out what the big narrative with France and China is. There's something important to France and China and how it's interrelated. There's something important to that, but I don't know enough of the history. I wonder if there's something that I don't understand because I don't know about it. But China's also important to the Great Wall of China. Think about the Garlic Festival that I made a whole video on talking about how it was connected to Buffy the Vampire Slayer, garlic and vampires, and Gilroy Garlic Festival equaled 310, and Gilroy, California equaled 310, just like Buffy the Vampire Slayer equals 310. But Gilroy is the leading producer of garlic in the United States, but worldwide, China is the biggest producer, hands down, of garlic. So there's another story, in connection to China. Plus, Donald Trump saying that these protests today, he says, you know, China is moving troops to the Hong Kong border, once again reminding us of, the wall symbolism. Earlier in the year when the government shutdown was going on, that was all about the number 25 and Donald Trump, and that's why we got the El Paso shooting at the Walmart, because El Paso had already started building the wall before it even got funded. But we had that shooting, then the Dayton shooting, and so on. I have a video on that too, but it was all about the number 25. And um, earlier, when that government shutdown was going on, we got a story about how China had landed on the dark side of the moon, reminding us of the band Pink Floyd, who has the albums called The Wall and also Dark Side of the Moon. The Chinese Pig Year also began on the date of 2/5, right? That big day that was synced up to the wall symbolism. Trump getting $2.5 billion to build the wall. Walmart 25, Trump 25, Pence 25, Dayton 25, so on. That's why all of the stuff during the shutdown was important to the number 25, that, it ended on the 25th day of the year, on Trump's second year, fifth day being the president, and much, much more. So the pig year beginning on 2/5 is really important to that wall symbolism. We also recently got a story about Jeremy Lin, the Chinese basketball player, saying that he doesn't care about, the NBA doesn't care about him anymore. And think about the other Chinese basketball player, Yao Ming, who played for the Houston Rockets. And, for a number of years, I've talked about how DeMarcus Cousins was important to this narrative with the Houston Rockets. And also to Kobe Bryant, who tore his Achilles, just like DeMarcus Cousins. And I think it was 2017 in the NBA preseason, the Pelicans, who were the team that DeMarcus Cousins tore his Achilles against, and then I think, yeah, he tore his Achilles against them. But in the preseason, the Pelicans played the Rockets in China, and one of the Rockets players named Bobby Brown, he graffitied on the Great Wall, and that was a big deal. And think about Jeremy Lin and Kobe Bryant, and Kobe Bryant's really connected to the Toronto Raptors. This is a team he scored 81 points against and much more. Made his comeback after tearing his Achilles against the Raptors. The Raptors just went on to win the NBA Finals, and Jeremy Lin just so happened to be on the Toronto Raptors. And his birthday is August 23rd, which is the same day Kobe Bryant was born, which on the Julian calendar, August 10th is the same as August 23rd. So Kobe Bryant's birthday, Jeremy Lin's birthday, on the Julian calendar will be August 10th on their birthday. So something important there. DeMarcus Cousins signs with the Los Angeles Lakers. Comes from the Pelicans. There's a big narrative with it. Also, in regards to Iowa, I'm just wondering about this. Iowa is the French name for from the monks. And earlier this year on 4/9, we got a story about the Dalai Lama being hospitalized for chest pains or chest infection or something like that. And it just so happened to be 2 months and 27 days before his birthday. And, 49, the 49th prime is 227. That's this big number that's important to France, that I've talked about numerous times. But France is important to Iowa. The Iowa flag, resembles the French flag. They're part of French Louisiana. Des Moines even incorporated on the same day that the French Republic was established, and it will be 227 years this year on 9/22. But the Dalai Lama at one point in time also had to flee from Tibet to go to India because of some conflict with China. So I just wonder, the Dalai Lama, a famous monk, Des Moines being called from the monks. I feel like there's something important to it, but I don't know that enough about the Dalai Lama or even, French and Chinese relations to fully grasp it. So I need to do some research on that. But I feel like there's a definite connection to all that. I just watched one of Zach's videos, and we had there was a tear gas thing on August 11th in China at the airport, I believe it was, and on the video it even says that it was the first time they ever used tear gas at the inside an MTR station in Hong Kong. And remember on August, was it 10th or 11th at the Alaska Mosque, we got the tear gas event as well. So, it's synced up to China, Hong Kong. Zach even showed how in the article it was HK instead of Hong Kong. H is the 8th letter, K the 11th letter. And then he even showed that there was a Golden Gate that was in Taiwan, right? I just saw this earlier. Golden Gate between China and Taiwan. And that's interesting because if you write out China in satanic gematria, it equals 210. Just like if you write out San Francisco, California, it equals 210. And if you go back and watch, this number 210 was right alongside of the number 310 for the majority of stuff I was talking about. So this big number with Buffy and so on, it was coincided with this other number 210. Even the Gematrinator getting taken down 210 days before August 10th and much, much more, So China just, super important. China, the reason for the Dow's recent drop. Think about Wall Street. Donald Trump wants to build the wall. The richest presidents. Trying to see here. What else did I miss? There's some interesting stuff going on with Iowa still, too. Like, I'm hoping to make a separate video on this, but you come to the blog if I don't. But on August 8th, we got the story about how the White Sox and the Yankees are going to play at the Field of Dreams in Iowa, right? And in 2020. And, really, what is the purpose of this? That movie came out in 1989, right? And I talked about how it was synced up to the Earthquake World Series of the Giants and the Oakland Athletics, right? Because in the movie Field of Dreams, he takes Terrence Mann to the Red Sox versus the Oakland Athletics, and then they flash on the screen 1922 New York, which was the Giants at the time, and that World Series was a same city World Series. And then later in 1989, we had the Oakland Athletics play the San Francisco Giants in a same city World Series, right? Just so happened to be the Earthquake World Series. But what is the purpose of this game? It's going to be on the 31 years after the movie came out. You think they would do it on a more significant number, right? 30 years or 25, or why 31 years? And I know why. It's because it's synced up to what I was talking about. The Cleveland Indians were absolutely synced up to Field of Dreams in 2016. Think about all that with how this trolling narrative and all the stuff with Monograph I'm talking about. But it was one of the major reasons why I thought the Indians were going to be in the World Series was because of this theme with Field of Dreams and Kevin Costner, who also portrayed Jim Garrison in the movie JFK. That was that guy, Jim Garrison, that he portrayed is from Denison, Iowa, which is just a few miles from where I live, and it has Yellow Smoke Park, and there was just a bunch of stuff. The town that I live in killed Yellow Smoke, and then we had Prince's Yellow Cloud guitar being sold to the Colts owner, the land of the Indian, and then we even got Chief David Bald Eagle, who was in Dances with Wolves with Kevin, whatever his name is. I can't believe I can't think of it. Kevin Costner. But that guy died in that summer. Then we got the death of W.P. Kinsella. They got inspiration for Shoeless Joe, or the Field of Dreams, because he wrote the book Shoeless Joe. Then we got the death of James Earl Jones's wife just before the World Series began. And I knew it was just synced up to the Indians and this big Native American theme that I was following. And I just wonder if the Indians are going to be in the World Series in 2020, if that's part of the narrative here. I mean, possibly it's for this year, just because of the August 10th and Rocky Colavito, but it's the reason I know that it's important is just because it's gonna come 114 days after the anniversary of Field of Dreams, and 114 is this big number I've just recently been talking about, and how it was synced up to the Cubs and 2016 and so on, and how I think this year it's synced up to the Astros being in the World Series, and we recently just got the Astros. What was it? The Astros. Can't even remember what they did. Should remember. Let me find it here. Oh yeah, I remember now. It was the Astros had the no-hitter against the Mariners on August 3rd. And remember, the Angels had the no-hitter against the Mariners as well. And it was all synced up to Tyler Skaggs and his birthday of 713. And 713 just so happens to be the Houston area code, right? So it's all synced up to the Angels and the Astros. I'm pretty sure being in the World Series this year. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Indians were somehow in there. But I really think there's a lot of symbolism going on for the Astros. And the number 713 important to Tyler Skaggs. It's important to the Houston area code. And I'm going to skip over that, but Field of Dreams, I think, is important too with Slipknot because remember how we just had the death of this guy's daughter that was all by the numbers? This guy in Slipknot really has the most pointless job in Slipknot. Basically, his job is to take a baseball bat and hit a keg of beer. So, just makes me think about Field of Dreams yet again. Baseball, Slipknot being important to this guy, Slipknot being important to the Pig year. Paul Gray was known as the Pig, so I don't know. We'll see what happens, right? I think the Indians might be in the World Series next year, though. And a lot of that had to do with the number 116, and it's the 116th World Series. Talked about how it was all synced up to the area that I live in. The town that I live in equals 116. Slipknot equals 116. There was the death of an Iowa football player that was reminding us of the Denison, Iowa football player, Brandon Scherf, who played for the Washington Redskins, the Native American team, right? But talked about how when I moved to Arizona, I went to the Grand Canyon and I saw somebody with the same Harrison County, Iowa license plates, and then I met a guy from Dunlap, the town I live in, was visiting the Grand Canyon at the same time I was, and the Grand Canyon equal 116. I moved there on the date of 11/6, 116. So Native American theme like crazy. Since I'm going on here, whatever, I might as well just talk about some of the synchronicity just to put it in here. But today, in regards to the Giants in the Field of Dreams and the '89 Earthquake series, this morning when I woke up, I got on Facebook for just a few seconds, and the first thing that was on there was this story about, you know, supposedly they found this skull outside of Jerusalem, and it's proof that Goliath actually existed, right? There's stone in his forehead or whatever. And, my thought is, oh, it's just another just bullcrap story, you know what I mean? Like, what's it even matter? Like, I don't know. The lady who shared this is a lady who's like, she knows that something's not right with the world, but she thinks it's still, everything's George Soros and it's, the left and the right and Democrat and Republican and voting matters and which is absolutely far from the truth. But she shared something like this and I don't ever talk to her, but I just kind of was like, huh. interesting, move on with my day. And that was the last thing I looked at it, went to work, right? And when I was at work, there was this kid who came in like an hour later, and he was wearing the shirt with a bunch of stuff written in Spanish on it. And he was there forever. Like he walked around, he picked up some stuff, he was waiting for the bathroom. He went in the bathroom, then paid for his stuff, and then he stopped and he was waiting for someone. And he just kind of walked around, and I was like, I noticed the shirt had all this writing in Spanish, so I got like some of the phrases. I was curious what it meant, right? Because I don't speak Spanish, and I just typed it in. I typed in like the first, this right here, me tiendo David Sumano, whatever. I typed in up to here, and this is what came up, and it was Samuel 1740 died in the Bible. And I was like, huh, David, right? I'm thinking about this morning with Goliath, and I'm like, huh, maybe it's something to do with David and Goliath. And of course, when you translate it to English, it literally is exactly the part where David sinks the stone into the forehead of Goliath. And I'm like, what are the odds this kid comes into the store, just a few hours after this is the first thing on my Facebook feed. And after he left, it wasn't that busy. So I, on Tuesdays, I usually put away the extra stuff, the overstock in this cupboard behind the register, because on Wednesday they come out and order stuff and they want to have everything full like we have, right? So it wasn't that busy, so I opened up the cupboard to start putting away the stuff, and literally the first thing I see when I open up the cupboard is this box that says Giants on it, right? Think about Goliath. And it's a box of sunflower seeds, and when I was putting them away, I noticed that the only two brands of sunflower seeds that we sell at the store are Giants and another brand called David. What are the odds of that, right? David and Goliath, the giant, right? I'm just going, it's just too much, right? Synchronicity like crazy. And I was just wondering, maybe there was something to do with the San Francisco Giants, right? Because we've been talking about them. They just had the tribute to the 1989 World Series playing the Phillies at on August 11th and so on. And I don't know how I never noticed it before, but they also, or maybe I did, but it just registered. Today, they just happened to play the Oakland Athletics. They started a series against the Oakland Athletics, the team that, they played against in the 1989 World Series, the Earthquake World Series, right? It's the one that was synced up to Field of Dreams. So I was thinking about earthquake stuff. I was like, possibly we're going to get that earthquake narrative that still exists. It's definitely still around. Also in Gematria, Goliath equals 117, like the word bridge. So I was like, San Francisco, Golden Gate Bridge. What's going on here? And then a little bit later, some other old guy, he was in the store for like an hour, and he came up to me and asked me if I knew this other guy, and I was like, well, I know him, but I haven't seen him. And he's like, well, I was supposed to meet him here. And he sat back down for a little bit, and then he was looking at me, and I was like, well, why don't you call him? And apparently, I don't know if he just didn't have a phone or what, but somehow he gave me the number, and I dialed it on my phone. I only have speakerphone, so because my son threw my phone in the toilet a while back. But I put it on speakerphone, and then I heard him talking to this guy, and the guy said, oh, I'll be there in a little bit. And then he never showed up. It was like a half hour later, he still wasn't there, still wasn't there. And then my phone rang, and it was a Los Angeles number, and I was like, what the heck is Los Angeles calling me for? And then I started thinking about the earthquake stuff, but I hung the phone up, and then like instantly after I hung it up, it rang again, and I was helping a customer, and I kind of just pushed it to turn it off, and then I went and looked at it, and I was like, crap, I hung up on that other guy. And so he had called back. He was like wondering why he thought the guy was in the parking lot, but he's actually in the store. So I called him back, and I was like, hey, he's in here, come in the store or whatever. So I don't know. Just makes me think about Los Angeles. I did talk about the earthquake symbolism, that we got that big earthquake in Los Angeles on the 4th of July. And, months before that, I talked about how there was something synced up to Los Angeles that's in the 310 area code to the Angel of Independence statue in Mexico City and earthquakes. And then on, Independence Day, that Los Angeles got an earthquake just after the Angels player died. So I also have this old video from 2014 where I was talking about the Titanomachy and the whatever it's called, the gigantic omaki, and because the giants in Greek mythology are actually like they were basically siblings to the Titans, right? But the Titans are also big, and like so apparently they're confused with the Giants, right? And I was talking about them when the Giants were playing the Royals in the World Series in 2014. So I was like, huh, I'll look at my video, and of course my video had said it had 11 views, which is weird, but I don't know. It's just interesting to me, right? So something to do with the Giants from 2014, and I was talking about this narrative. And when you look up Greek mythology, giants, it says the vanquished giants were said to be buried under volcanoes and to be the cause of volcanic eruptions and earthquakes, right? So, huh, how interesting, right? San Francisco Giants, earthquakes, Titans. I come home and the first thing I went to yahoo.com, the first article, an article about the Tennessee Titans coach yelling at a rookie and then his wife yelled at him. I'm like, huh, Tennessee Titans of all things, you know. So I was watching for the game tonight, and I don't know the significance. The Giants won 3-2. I don't know if that's significant, but in regards to Los Angeles, I did see that the Dodgers won with a score of 1-15, and it's the 115th World Series. Plus Dodgers equal 117 like Goliath and Bridge, and Giants equal 92 like Astros. Remember 2017, the Astros beat the Giants in the World Series, or the Dodgers in the World Series, so I don't know. Just trying to piece it together, you know, but that's the one of the biggest things I wish I could understand with this knowledge is I know that synchronicity is important, and there's it happens to me all of the time that these synchronicity things are synced up to things going on in the world, you know, but I never know the exact date of when it's going to sync up, and I never know exactly what is to come with it. But I know that the narrative that I am following, it always comes up within the mainstream media within, you know, a very short amount of time after these weird synchronicity things happen. I wish that I could get a better understanding of how the synchronicity, like a better guide to understanding the synchronicity, because I know that it's like I'm like right on the tip of it, but I want to be able to actually pinpoint it to a specific event in a specific day. And I don't know why it's always got to be so complicated, you know. The narrative's always there, but I don't know. That's one of the things that I'm hoping to eventually learn. That's why I keep doing this over and over to maybe recognize a pattern that explains how to better read the synchronicity. But I've been talking about synchronicity for a long time. I didn't even know that's what it was called for the longest time. But, you know, it just the people who control this world, and it's obvious that, you know, they use stories like Alicia Olive and the Cook brothers surviving the Garlic Festival just before the Ned Peppers shooting, where you had the whatever his name was, Derek Fudge. And then, you know, think about El Paso and Old El Paso and whatever, you know. They're obviously scripting these stories with fake people, fake names, or whatever else, but somehow the synchronicity, there's something else helping me understand it, guiding me, but for whatever reason, it can't be straightforward with me to fully understand it, you know. So that's what I'm really hoping to learn. If this truly is an awakening period again, just like 2016, I really want to learn how to understand the synchronicity better. That's one of the biggest things I want to know, but it happens too often. So let's see. I'll probably just leave the video there. I just want to share the synchronicity because the odds of it are just stupid, you know. The only sunflower seeds we sell are David David brand and giants, and then I have all the synchronicity with David and Goliath. Just makes me wonder about, the underdog. I don't know, there's an underlying meaning to it. I don't know if it's about sports or if it's about, you know, about this knowledge, being the underdog and overtaking these people who are ruling over us with it, or, it exists everywhere. It's just that the people who are controlling our media know this and somehow they're using it to keep us enslaved in this system. And that's what I'm trying to figure out and try to figure out how to create a better world by using this system and showing other people how to use this system and how we can, collectively create a better world from this. So we'll leave it there. I want to make a video about this, a separate video about this guy kneeling during the national anthem at the Pan Am Games, because it's really synced up and it doesn't necessarily go along with this video, but just wanted to point out definitely something important to August 10th, August 11th, even though no major event happened. And there's something to do with 2011 and just the number 11 specifically. I need to go back and review my video that I made that's all about the number 11 way back when, back in November. So the band Finger 11 I had synchronicity with, and so on, right? Talked about Thaumiel, which is the 11th Sephirah on basically the satanic tree of life. And 11's important because it's like L, even, right? You're even with L. L is the bull god, and so on. So have a good one. Peace.